As the screen comes up and the lights go down, all you see is a thick fog. And as the camera pushes through, a little wisp of haze breaks across the lens. It's eerie, not enough light to know is this early morning, late afternoon. And soon these large silhouettes start to appear. I don't realize until we get into it. It's a big grove of dead trees, old limbs, branches, not a leaf, no green on them, all twisted and gnarled together. And the camera takes us up and over and between. And then you hear that little music in the background. As we come to a small clearing, as the fog starts to blow its way across, I notice a gate. It has been open for so long that weeds and thickets have grown up in between the timber. It's been left open. And as we push on, one by one they appear. The first two pass before I even realize what they are. And by the time the third one approaches, I realize it's a tombstone, followed by another tombstone, and yet another. And this time the hair on the back of my neck starts to stand as you hear that. My hand's frozen in my bucket of popcorn, large, extra butter. My Diet Coke, because it cancels each other out. And I'm waiting for something to jump on the screen. And there through the edge of the cemetery on the limestone cliff he sits, backlit by a sun that is going down in the opposite direction. All I see is his silhouette, right arm moving, twisting, juggling something. And it's not until we pull to the side for the first time I can clearly see him. His hair is wild. Its beard is matted. His eyes are more animalistic than human. And in his right hand, he keeps turning it over and over and over. He's found a large rock with a jagged edge on one side, and he's now finally found his grip. And as he squeezes it, you see the tendons in his forearm and his biceps start to flex. And he raises it to his naked torso, and he plunges it into his skin, and he starts to drag. And a line of flesh opens up behind, and blood runs down. And for the first time, I see the scars on his arm and on his chest. This isn't his first attempt. Somewhere in the middle, he tries to go deeper as if he can end it all, but bone meets breastplate, and there's a standoff, and his hand shakes, and his fist opens, and the bloody rock tumbles down the cliff. That's where he sees them. For the first time, he has noticed somebody has dared to land on his beach. And like a flash, a twitch mechanism, his entire body jumps and starts to run. He doesn't look for a path. He doesn't look for any walkway. From the back, I realize he is completely naked, and there are scars there too. These he hasn't caused himself. And he runs right through the thistles and the cacti as if he has no nerves in his feet, arms flailing wildly. The second camera has just picked them up. The 16, 18-foot wooden boat has just come to the beach. Those in the front have jumped off into about knee-deep water. They will take the last two propulsions of the oars from those in the middle and use that momentum to pull the rest up on dry ground. And one by one, the passengers can get off without getting wet. And they have no idea what is bearing down on them until they hear the scream of the naked man, freshly bleeding. "What do you want from me?" And that's when I lose it. My wife buries her head into my shoulder, and she's like, "Why do you take me to see this?" And I'm all, "Shh, just watch." She says, "You promised this would be a love story." I said, "It is. I love this story. Tell me when it's over." And I'm like, "I don't know what's happening." There's a certain amount of conversation. It's small. One is standing there undaunted, unflinched, unmitigated, unintimidated. And he looks at the naked man who has now thrown himself into the rocks on his knees. And he simply says, "What is your name?" And from within the man, it comes out, "My name is Legion, because we are many." 12 are now back into the boat. One stands. And with a mere word, he cast demons out of a man into a herd of pigs. There we took a third camera, catches young teenage boys. Their job is to watch pigs. Not a big job. Not a lot of qualification. And they're standing and watching pigs. When unexplainable, it seems like a bolt of electricity of lightning has struck every pig and they run off the cliff. Thousands of them. The young boys run back to town, the city gate where all the commerce and the business is kept, and they quickly tell people, "We got some pigs here. We got some pigs." They're like, "Calm down. What's going on?" We got some pigs. How many pigs did you lose? All of them. All of them. And the townspeople run out, and they see a bay full of pigs that are floating, a man who was naked and carving himself in the cemetery, now clothed and in his right mind. And they take one look at the entire situation, and they look at the man standing on shore that seems to be the cause of all of it. We don't know who you are or what you're selling, but you can take it out of here. And as quickly as Jesus has walked into the scene, he now rows away from the scene. By the time the boat reaches the other shore, there's another crowd. They've heard the miracles. We've gone through 5 chapters so far. They've heard the stories. Apparently, in the storm, in a boat, this guy can walk on water. This guy has taken his finger and stuck it into the oozing pus and infection of those with leprosy, and molecules on the skin obey his touch and rearrange, and diseases leave. He is stopped by the city gate, and on his way into town, and he spit a loogie and put it in the mud, put it on a blind guy's eyes, and now he can see. They've heard the stories, and their synagogue, their church leader, has run down to the beach to find him. It's my little girl. She's 12. She's missed 4 weeks of 6th grade. The fever hasn't left her. We've done all that she can. We didn't know where to find you. Can you just come? And as they approach the house, Jesus leaves the 12 and takes Peter, James, and John. And by the time they walk in the small stone home, they see what friends have told them on the road. It's no use to bring Jesus. You're too late. And for the first time in days, Mom leaves the bedside of her little girl, and she stands to bury her head in her husband's chest. He grabs her by the back of the neck and the small of the waist, and for the first time, Dad sees his little girl with no breath in her body and no color in her skin. And beside this embrace, Jesus slips, kneels down and touches her hand. Talitha Kaume, in Aramaic. Little girl, let's get up. And breath comes back into her body, and eyes flutter and open, and he stands her to her feet. And Mom and Dad are filled with, we don't have an adjective in the human language for watching your dead daughter stand. Is it shock? Is it fear? Is it astonishment? Is it joy? Is it bewilderment? And in the midst of this silence, Jesus speaks. Don't tell anyone outside what just happened here. She was merely in a coma. Protect her prom night. No one will ever dance with a zombie at prom night. So don't let anyone know what's happened here. Oh, and fix her some macaroni and cheese. She's hungry. That was one afternoon in the life of Jesus in Mark chapter 5. One afternoon. And I wonder if it is racing through their head. I wonder if that's what's going on in their mind. Because 4 chapters later, Jesus once again will leave the disciples and take Peter, James, and John and say, we've got something to do. And the last time the 3 of them were all singled out, that was the afternoon. And now they start walking up the trail, having no clue what's about to happen on the mountaintop. Okay, for the rest of this, you got to watch it on your own flat screen. I want you to open it or turn it on. We are in the book of Mark, chapter 9. His stories, not ours. Mark, chapter 9. If you got a Bible, go to the back, look for the guys' names. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. If you have a smartphone, open your Bible app, touch Mark, swipe 9, swipe right. Mark, chapter 9. You got it? You got a Bible? You got Mark, chapter 9? If you don't know where Mark is, God wrote a table of contents on page 1 of your Bible. Just so you can find out where Mark is. I want you to see this, to circle, highlight, underline with your own eyes. Mark chapter 9. You ready? It begins like this. It's going to be good. We're going to pick up in verse 2 because verse 1 kind of goes with the story above it and we don't have time to get into it. We're going to go. Verse 2. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain where they were all alone. And there he was transfigured before them. And I don't know, okay? Here's what I'm going to do. It's kind of odd. I know it's our first session. I'm with you tonight. Maybe tonight will make sense. This one doesn't to me. Come up afterwards and go, Chris, what do you think? And I'll tell you. I told you I don't know. Don't come up and talk to me about it. I don't have any clue about 90% of the story. We're going to read what happened. We're going to try to see what happened. We're going to own what happened, and we're going to apply what happened. But when you ask me the specifics, I have no clue. 2 questions immediately jump out. Why does Jesus always pick those 3 guys? There's 12 disciples. Last time something really, really amazing was going to happen, he picked Peter, James, and John, and he raised the 12-year-old girl from the dead. Something really amazing has just happened, and he picked 3 guys, Peter, James, and John. The last night of his life in the garden, he tells his disciples, you guys wait here, I'm going to pray. No, I'm taking Peter, James, and John. Why the same 3? Is Jesus just bad at math? You got 12 guys. If you're taking 3, split them in teams of 4. Even I can come up with that. Give everybody a turn. And you can ask me afterwards, but I have no clue. Some people say, well, these guys were closer to Jesus than the rest of the disciples. Maybe. Some people say, well, these 3 were some of the first picked. They had the least amount to go on, the most faith required. Maybe. In my mind, I just think these 3 can't be trusted back at camp. I think that's why Jesus did it. Jesus is like, look, I got to do something amazing. You guys stay here. And as soon as he walks away, these guys are already pulling out like the bottle rockets, the M80s. They got a fire going. And he's like, oh, me, you 3, come with me. And they're like, oh. And they head up a mountain. And when they get up to the top of the mountain, it says Jesus was transfigured before them. And this is one I can't explain. What does it mean? It means there was actually a metaphysical change in who Jesus was. I played with Transformers, so did you. That's close. A dude becomes a truck or a plane. Did Jesus walk up on the mountain and become Optimus Prime? It's the same word. He physically changed on this mountain. It does give us a little bit of a hint here. It says this. He was transfigured before them. His clothes became dazzling white, whiter than anyone in the world could ever bleach them. So part of this transfiguring, he became like a lot of bleach was used. And I don't want to make fun of the Bible because the Bible, it's this brilliant story. But Matthew, one of the disciples, writes about this story. Luke writes about this story. And Mark writes about this story. And when Matthew gives us a glimpse of what being transfigured is, he said when they got up to the mountain, Jesus became like the sun was inside of him. Like the sun burst out of him. Oh, that's cool. When Luke writes this story in chapter 9 in the book of Luke, Luke says when they get up to the mountain, Jesus became like lightning. Oh, that's dope. Mark said, like he used a lot of bleach. Which I wonder if in heaven, like these 3 guys ever compare notes on what they wrote. Like they're sitting around heaven one day and they're like, hey, did you write about that time Jesus like blew up? And they're like, yeah. They're like, what'd you do? I said he became like lightning boy. And they're like, dude, that was awesome. Matthew, what'd you write? I said it was like the sun was inside of him. Everybody's like, oh, dang. Like, that was awesome. Mark, what'd you write? And he's like, I wrote about it. I said it was like Clorox. Now, he's my favorite of all the writers of the Jesus stories because he's the shortest, so I don't expect him to have a lot of imagination and description. But this is what's happening. They're following Jesus up the mountain. They get up to the top, and he becomes like lightning boy. Yeah. And this is where some of you that have grown up going to church, you may have to get rid of your Sunday school Jesus. Okay? I grew up in West Texas. One of the reasons I'm an avid fisherman out here for the past 30, 35 years of my life is because in West Texas, we didn't have water. So I just love being on the water, man. I had to grow up in the desert. Great for shooting guns, rifles, shotguns, great for riding dirt bikes, great for being off-road, terrible for fishing. And when I get to these stories, I got to go back to my West Texas upbringing. And I grew up in a church where they had Sunday school, where little kids went in that class as the adults went in the other. And we had to color pictures of what the story was about. And inevitably, we had to color pictures of Jesus. And I just want to be honest. It messed with my head a little bit of who my God is. Because Jesus in every coloring page was this 80-pound, toothpick arms, mini skirt wearing. He had a little sash, like he just won the Messiah contest. Had a lamb, never a big lamb either, like a little fluffy lamb. And he was just like, ah. And he was always just like glow-in-the-dark white. And growing up in West Texas, I would always finish coloring him, and I'd be like, well, that's your God. Like he wouldn't make it 5 minutes on our playground. He couldn't walk the halls of my high school. It wasn't until later in life and studying and visiting Israel and marrying into a Jewish family. Oh, that was good. I knew who I was, and I thought at least half my kids should be chosen, so I need to marry a Jew. And I married this beautiful woman who is 24/7 tan. Oh, she is dark skinned. And if you go to Israel and you meet the Hebrew people and Middle East, you realize ain't none of them white. They don't glow in the dark. There's no halo. You look at what he did, and the Bible says, or most of it said, oh, Jesus was a carpenter. That word there says Jesus is a tecton. What is a tecton? It is one who shapes with his hands. So when you go to Israel and you look around the entire area of Bethlehem and Capernaum and the Sea of Galilee, you're going to ask yourself, well, where's all the carpentry? And any good Hebrew guide is going to go, what? Yeah, where's the forestry? And they're going to tell you, 2 nations away. There's no carpenters on the northern edge of the Sea of Galilee. Well, it says Jesus was a carpenter. And everybody living in Israel and the Hebrew people go, no. He worked with stone. You know what the northern edge of Sea of Galilee, you know what Jesus' own hometown is known for? Rock quarries. That's what a tecton is. So you mean to tell me, since my Jesus was little, he worked with rock? Oh, yeah. He was probably pretty yoked. Oh, yeah. So he's a yoked up, dark-skinned dude? Yeah. So I don't have a wimpy God. You're dumb. You've been coloring too many Sunday school pages. This is a dude that when he speaks, people will sit for 3 days without breakfast, lunch, and dinner just because of his words. He's not teaching stuff that weak-minded people need, that those that need a crutch can limp on. He speaks the type of words that big barrel-chested dock workers, men who move wooden ships by hand for a living, drop everything and say, that's the dude I can follow. That's the guy I've been waiting for. And when he gets up on this mountain, he becomes like lightning. This is not a miracle. Listen to me. Future Quest. This is not a miracle. This is a pause in what's been a 30-year miracle. The miracle is that your God came to earth to take on flesh, to be one of us. so that we can more relate with our God. And for a moment on the mountain, they paused the miracle of Jesus being human, and through his humanity, his real personality, his real deity busted forth like the sun blew out of somebody, like lightning was shooting out of someone, like Clorox was used a lot. And Peter, James, and John have got to be speechless, floored. And there appeared before them Elijah and Moses, who were talking with Jesus. And Peter and there appeared before them Elijah and Moses, who were... What's wrong with you guys? And there appeared before them Elijah and Moses. Oh, you guys make... No, you are a lousy Jewish audience. You are terrible Jews. Let me take you back. Let me take you back to Peter, James, and John standing there. Let me take you back to the very foundation, the theme of this conference, the very foundation of all Judaism, of all Hebrew faith. Let me take you back to what Peter, James, and John, and if we can, just get a glimpse of what must have happened when Moses and Elijah appeared up. Moses is the greatest leader of your people. Moses is the one that approached the burning bush. Remember that? He's a shepherd dude out in the wilderness, bush is burning. He's like, how come that bush doesn't burn up? And as he walks over there, the bush speaks, Moses, take off your shoes. This is holy ground. And he's like, oh, dang. Shepherd knows what happens. And bush tells him, my people are confined in Egypt as slaves. Go tell Pharaoh, let them go. The most powerful man in the universe, the most powerful empire, 1400 BC, is Egypt. You don't stand before the most powerful man in the world and say, by the way, you got a little over 1 million slaves. Today they're free and they're following me. No one's going to buy this. I'm a shepherd. I can't stutter. He goes, take a stick with you. What's that, your staff? Throw it down. It becomes a snake. Pick it back up. Turns back into a stick. You can pull that trick anytime you want. Moses is the guy that was able to raise this stick, and the Red Sea split so the slaves could walk away from Egypt on dry ground, and those same waves took over an army that was after him. Moses is a guy that prayed to God, and plagues broke the greatest nation in the world into pieces until they finally tapped out. Moses was a guy that would speak to a rock in the wilderness and a stream would flow out of it so everyone could drink. Moses was a guy that realized his people was hungry, so he would pray to God, and they'd wake up the next morning and Pop-Tarts were all over the ground. It's in the Bible. Hebrew word is manna, but English word is Pop-Tart. All over the ground. Moses is the guy that went up to the mountain and sat with God, and God said, let me give you the commands. Moses is the guy that wrote the first 5 books of your Bible. Moses is the foundation of past quest, not future quest. Moses was their law. Moses was their leader. Moses was their greatest hero. At the time Jesus is pulling off Lightning Boy, Moses has been dead for 1,400 years. Peter, James, and John get to the top of the mountain. Jesus is doing Lightning Boy. Moses, probably stick in his hand, commandments in the other, long white beard, and they're like, ah! Other guy shows up with a name tag that says Elijah, and they're like, Elijah. See, Elijah is your greatest prophet. If Moses was the giver of your law, Elijah was your greatest prophet. Elijah was your greatest spiritual superhero. Elijah was the guy that went up on Mount Carmel and in front of a nation and said, let's go. Let's duke it out. Let's see who the real God is. Me against the 450 satanic priests that have your little temples in this land. All of you show up. And they had a showdown on whose God was best. And Elijah prayed and fire fell from heaven. And at the end of that day, Elijah said, you know what we need to do? We need to kill us 450 satanic priests. We're going to cut the cancer out of Israel. Oh, Elijah was the guy that brought your people back. Not from slavery, Moses to that. He brought your people back from the world and brought them back to God. Do you see, for Peter, James, and John, they have grown up their whole life with two superheroes in their nation, Moses and Elijah. They had Moses PJs that zipped all the way up one side. They had little Moses and Elijah action figures, stick and tablet sold separately. They had little Elijah pillowcases and sheets on their bed. In second grade, when they ran out to recess and the first one to touch the soccer pole got to claim what hero he was, the first guy almost always picked Moses. The second guy, Elijah. Third and fourth had to figure out between like Jonah and David. Like, I'm stinky fish guy. And you're like, good job. Should be faster. All that sums up your nation, your history, and your people. Moses has been dead for 1,400 years. Elijah has been dead for 900 years. And on this mountain, with Jesus going lightning boy, they both appear. Let's try this again. And there appeared before them Elijah and Moses. That was good. A cheer would do, but I don't think Peter, James, and John are like, yeah! It is an astonished, gut-shaking, mind-bending awe that falls on these three guys. Not that kind of awe. Let's do this again. There his clothes became dazzling white, whiter than anyone in the world could ever bleach them, and then appeared before them Elijah and Moses. We should just move on at this point. You're pretty bad fakers, but here we go. And there appeared before them Elijah and Moses, who were talking with Jesus. And Peter said to Jesus, Rabbi, it's good for us to be here. Have you ever said something like really stupid and like everyone looks at you? And then to cover it up, you say something like even more stupider? Congratulations, you're going to find a new hero in the Bible. Picture the scene. Now we have the scene. Now we have, Chubby's guy's burning a calorie every time he jumps. Now you have Jesus. No glow-in-the-dark toothpick, arm, skirt, sash wearing dude. But dark-skinned, rocked, calloused hand, Jesus, skin blows off of him. Who he really is pops out between what he's taken on in humanity. And it's like the sun, like lightning, shooting from him. There before Moses, Elijah, and in this scene, Pete decides to speak. And in this moment, Peter goes, hey, Rabbi? And Jesus is like, and he's all, it's really good to be here. Are you kidding me? Okay, let me give you a tip. Let me give you a hint. If, and I don't think this will ever happen, I'm just saying if you are ever, and trust me, it hasn't happened to me, like I said, it's probably not going to happen to you, it's just words of wisdom. But if you are in a place, and I don't think you'll ever be in that place, I don't think anything's going to work, but if you are ever in a place where Jesus shows up and is going lightning boy on you, and Moses is hanging out, and Elijah is there, Let me give you a tip. Shut up, okay? It's probably not about you. At that moment, if the greatest of the law and the greatest of the prophets, if the greatest of the Old Testament, the entire Old Testament in the Bible, summed up between the law and the prophets, if that shows up and Jesus is standing there like the sun is busting through his pores, shut up. But we have such a propensity, a humanness, to make all of our life about us. So Peter speaks. Hey, Rabbi, really good to be here. I think for the first time in this scene, Moses and Elijah realize there's other people here. Matthew speaks plainly about this. See, Jesus has just told the disciples, I'm going to Jerusalem to be killed. Jesus has just told the disciples, he's waited 8 chapters to give them a clue about the type of God he is. And he has just told them, I am going to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to hand myself over. I'm going to let them beat the snot out of me. I'm going to let them whip me, curse me, spit on me, mock me, and I'm going to allow them to kill me. 3 days later, I'm going to pull off Easter. And he's told them. And for the first time now, the secret's out. This guy didn't come to kick Roman butt. He didn't come to make life better. He didn't come to rescue them from poverty. He didn't come to set up a political empire. He came for their eternity. And the next story we have, Moses and Elijah show up on a mountain, and Matthew says it is the entire Old Testament, if you will, just to encourage Jesus, their God, about the road he has taken. It's as if everything before him showed up in 2 forms. Just say, this has always been about you. It will always be about you. It will forever be about you. And Peter makes this about him. Really good to be here. So now Mo and Eli and Jesus are all looking at Peter. And they got to be looking at Jesus like, who's this guy? And he's like, fisherman. I think James and John at this time distance themselves. Once Peter speaks, they're like, oh. And once you say something dumb, there's no going back. And sometimes you just dig a bit bigger hole. Peter now has the floor, so he decides to say this. It's really good to be here. Want us to put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah? Really good to be here. You guys need any tents? I mean, one for each of you. We can get a tent for each of you. You know you've said something really dumb when the Bible has to cover your butt. In parentheses, the Bible says this. He did not know what to say. He was so frightened. It's like, hey, give the guy a break. He was scared spitless. Whatever just happened in this story, as innocent as it may have been, has just pushed God's button. You ever want to know how to tick off God? It just happened. And you're like, oh man, I say stupid stuff all the time. That's not it. Peter just did it. Watch heaven's reaction to the scene on the mountain. Then a cloud appeared and enveloped them. And a voice came from within the cloud. This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him. Suddenly, when they looked around, they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone. What? Psst, hey, Rabbi. Really good to be here. You guys want me to make some tents? I mean, one for each of you. You don't have to bunk up or anything. cloud, enveloped. Can't see your hand in front of your face. Cloud, represented all through the Old Testament as God, the Shekinah glory. Cloud, a voice from somewhere within, can't see, can't identify, just hear. This is my son. This is whom I love. Listen to him. Immediately, clouds gone, no one there, Jesus. No lightning, no sun, no Clorox, just Jesus. Looks at Peter like, happy now? And he turns and he heads down the hill. And the guys head down the hill. What in the world just happened? Let me tell you, if you ever want to tick off God, just do this. And you're like, what did he do? What did he do? Peter mistakenly took the great things that were happening on this mountaintop and he included Jesus in the middle of this. Peter took the greatness of the entire Old Testament, the amazingness of a hero that has been dead for 1,400 years like Moses, everything he knew about prophet when the greatest guy's Elijah. He took everything and Jesus, and he says, this is awesome. This is what's really cool. Can the three of you use shelters? Three of you use tents, and God shows up. Boom, cloud. Are you kidding me? This is my son. This is my love. This is what you listen to. Show's over. And Moses and Elijah are yanked back to heaven. Cloud goes away, and Jesus looking at Peter. He's confused as all get out. What did I do? And they head down the hill. And Jesus says, don't even talk about this. You guys don't have a clue what this is about yet, do you? Do you? Let me tell you how we tick off God. Let me tell you how we put ourselves on this mountaintop. I heard last night was a pretty amazing experience for a lot of you. So stoked to see my buddy Carl. He and I have been hanging out for years and years now. So glad you got to hear from him and his heart. A gifted dude, but I tell you, even a better guy to sit and have sushi with and go out and play top golf and just hang out with. Carl's an awesome, awesome guy. And some of you came to a point last night of saying, man, I need Jesus in my life. Some of you have done this before in your life. Some of you may have gotten to church where they tell you, hey, here's how to put Jesus. You know, Jesus come in. Jesus wants to be part of your life. For me, I grew up in West Texas where it happened on a little flannel graph board. We had a little blue-haired lady that would come out and she would set up this little felt board and she would stick the little pictures on it. And the first Sunday of every month in our little church in West Texas, we got the same story. We would sit there as 5, 6, 7-year-olds in our little bucket seats. And she would come out in the class, boys and girls, look, listen, look, listen. And we'd all look up. Today is the most important thing I will ever tell you. This is big. Boys and girls, look, listen. One day, every one of you is going to die. And she'd usually pick somebody out. She'd usually go, Jimmy, on your way home from church today, your family might get hit by a truck and you'll die. And we're like, and we all moved away from Jimmy. We're like, Jimmy. Boys and girls, look, listen. Let me tell you what happens when you die. And she put on a flannel graph board flames. This big dark board with just orange and yellow flames. Boys and girls, look, listen. If you don't say a prayer and ask Jesus to come in and be part of your life, when you die, you're going to go to hell and burn forever and ever and ever. But listen, look, listen. And she pulled out a flannel graph board that was one of the most brilliant blue backgrounds I've ever seen. She put a giant castle on it, and she put gold all the way across the bottom. But boys and girls, look, listen. If you say a prayer right now and you allow Jesus to come in and be part of your life, when you die, you're going to go to heaven. If you don't say this prayer, you're going to burn forever. How many of you want to say this prayer? Dude, I grew up in West Texas. Like, I had enough of the heat option in my life. We're like, exactly how hot is that board over there on the right? And dude, we were done with heat. I said that prayer the first Sunday of every month. They gave me a little sticker. It had a heart on it that said Jesus, that Jesus has come into my life. She would close that first Sunday of every month the exact same way. Boys and girls, look, listen. If you said that prayer, Jesus is now a part of your life, and whenever you call on him, he'll always be there for you. And I bought it. I bought it. The worst definition of Christianity ever. And I bought it because I was scared of the hell option. It was cool as an elementary kid. Whenever I had a fear of dying, I would go and I'd open my closet door where I kept all my heart stickers, and I'm like, oh, I got like 50 mansions, I'm good. But then you get into middle school and become a teenager, and you realize this God does not show up when you pray. And this God is not paying off because I've gone to church. But I said a prayer when I was 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I bought it. Oh, I want you to hear me clearly on this because tonight we're going to unravel it. I apologize if that's what you thought your Christianity was. And I want to make it very, very clear. This Jesus will never, ever, ever be a part of your life. He will not. He is way too big of a God. And he has paid way too big of a price to be part of your anything. Anything. He did not die on the cross to bless you. He did not die on the cross to make your life better. He died to own you. He paid a high enough price to take all of you. And if he can't have all of you, I promise he will not be a part of you. Peter made the mistake. Jesus is part of this amazing scene. Jesus is part of this show. Moses and Elijah, Jesus, can I get the three of you something? Can I make the three of you tense? And God shows up and says, are you kidding me? You don't ever put Moses and Elijah on that same ground. These guys showed up to serve him. Are you kidding me? I have one son. This demonstrates my love for you. And this is what you listen to, the great Shema. This is what you hear, you follow, you obey. You think Jesus is going to be part of your life? Get over yourself. You have way too small of a life for him to be part of. Oh, the amazing thing about this God is in spite of who you are and what you've done, he will take all of you. He will take all of you. But he will not be a part of your show. And God shows up and says, show's over. So many times we get to these future quests, these youth things, and guys like me come on and go, let me talk to you about drugs and your pornography. And yeah, come on. We know about our sex life or our masturbation or our pornography or our alcohol or drug. Yeah, no one needs to tell me that's wrong. I innately know that. What no one ever told me is, Chris, you've got way too many good things in your life, great things in your life, and they have killed the God thing in your life. You expect, because you said a prayer, that Jesus will be part of your life. Show's over, bub. Show's over. He will take all of you. You're way too small for him to have a part of. And I promise, because of his love for you and what he paid for you, he has shown he's earned it and deserved it. See, Peter should have reflected on what just happened in the passage before. It's unfortunate. In the passage before, in chapter 8, Jesus shows up and says, who do people say that I am? And the disciples say, well, some say you're like John the Baptist. Others say you're like Elijah. Others say you're like a prophet. What about you? Who do you say I am? And Peter said, you are the Christ. You are the Messiah. You are the Son of God that all of history has been waiting for. And Jesus says, you finally get who I am. Now, let me tell you what that means. And he spoke plainly to Peter about this. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, the teachers of law, that he must be killed, and after 3 days he would rise again. He spoke plainly about this. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, And he rebuked Peter. Get behind me, Satan. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men. Peter, you're right. I am the Son of God. I am the Savior. And let me tell you how I'm going to sacrifice and surrender and die. And Peter goes, whoa, 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 whoa. I got a much better plan than that. Why don't we kick Roman butt? Why don't we set up a kingdom? Why don't we rule? And in front of everyone, Jesus says, now get behind me, Satan. You have no clue that the cost of Christianity is surrender. You have no clue that the cross has to be part of your life. You have no clue that to have this life with the risen Jesus, you've got to lose all of you. He will not be a part of your show. So he turns and he tries to explain them to him. He called the crowd, this is for everybody, along with his disciples, and said, if anybody wants to come after me, if anyone wants to be a Christian, you have to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for a person to gain the whole world, yet forfeit your soul? And what can a person give in exchange for their soul? Jesus has just told them, I'm not going to be a part of your life. I want all of it. You have to die to your hopes, your dreams, your desires, and say, it's all mine. I'm not going to be part of you. In fact, if you don't lose all of your life, he goes, I'm not going to take it. There's not room for both of us on the throne in your life. So here's what you have to do. You have to deny yourself, your rights to who you are, your rights to your relationship, your rights to your entertainment, your rights to your future, your rights to your education, your rights to your plans, your rights to your goals, your rights to your relationships. You have to deny yourself. Holy cow, that sounds like a lot. Oh yeah, let me put it this way. You're going to pick up a cross. That sucks for you. And then you're going to follow me. Well, let me tell you what's going to happen. In losing your life, I'm going to give you a life you could have never, ever gotten close to on your own. But I promise you this, I will never be a part of your life. I came to kill your life, forgive your life, take all of it, and make it something new. And the very next story, Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up on a mountain, and Peter goes, Jesus, it's really good to have you as part of all of this. And God said, show's over. Some of you made a decision last night with my buddy Carl, and now you're wondering, did I sign up for this? Some of you are Christians because you said a prayer a long time ago, and it ain't paying off. And you want your money back because some Sunday school teacher scared the hell out of you, and you said a prayer to get heaven into you, and it's not working. Hey, don't get me wrong. I'm glad if there's a hell option, I have a prayer in my back pocket, but it just isn't working. It's because the theme of this conference, you've lost the foundation. He will never be part of your life. He paid way too big of a price to be part of your life. He will take all of it. He will be the center of it. And you'll be amazed at where he takes you, or he'll take none of it. Well, Chris, what does that look like? Well, what stands in the way? How do I... My time's up. So we have a second session tonight. And if you dare come back, we're going to walk through story number 2 of Jesus saying, here's what I want. Here's what I want. Father, this is hard teaching. But God, as I sat through the incredible worship that was happening in here for the first half hour of this session, there were so many hands raised. There was so much emotion that we can do in the midst of song. And God, that can be incredible praise. That can be incredible worship to you. Or God, that could be this generation's way of just trying to get our Jesus touch on. Because this is the way we find that you're still part of our life. And we wonder when we walk out of our youth group and we walk away from our worship, why it's just not there. God, this is hard teaching because this is a room that seemed to demonstrate there's students that really have a desire to walk with you. May today and tonight you continue to unpack what it looks like to make sure you are never part of our life, but you are the very foundation of every day, of all that we do. And may you take our puny hopes and dreams and reputations, and may you rock them, decimate them into pieces until we can get over ourselves and allow you to have all of it, to take us on a journey we could never, ever get to on our own. That might not be a great ending for many of us. That might mean more hardship for a lot of us. But it means we do this with you, and that's the role we play. May you throughout this day change our hearts, change our minds. May you get us to the point where we realize you are never, ever going to be a part of our great existence. But we can be a part of yours. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know why you'd want me. But in spite of that, that was your greatest act of love. So may we truly give you, all of us, to gain what we can never earn, what we could never live up to, what we could never work for, what we could never truly live out, but to walk this earth holding the hand of the creator of the universe, knowing we are truly yours and you are ours. In Jesus' name, amen.